Jack Ramsey, joined by Rob Pearsall, and our great guest, Bobby Valentine. Bobby, how are you?
Hi, Jack. Hi, Rob. I'm good, guys. A little tired because I'm an old man, and it's 8:30 at night. But other than that, everything's cool. Thank you.
I remember seeing someone who debuted that was my age, and I felt like, wow, I'm over here sitting in, journalism 101 class.
It's kind of interesting, right? In 1969, I was a student at USC during the daytime, and I was a player for the Dodgers at night. How crazy is that? So it was only September. They expand the rosters in September.
Mm-hmm.
And so I played AAA that year and then got right into USC because if you weren't a full-time student in those days or married with children or crippled, you went to Vietnam. And so I was a full-time student. So as soon as the season ended in AAA on September 1st, I flew down to LA. I got in line. I registered for my classes. And then on September 2nd, the rosters expanded, and I got a phone call from the general manager who said, "Hey, listen, I want you to stay in school. You have to be a full-time student, but we have 9 home games here in September. Why don't you come down and be part of the team for the last month?" It was pretty cool. And that was a year, for whatever it's worth. It was 1969. The first game I got into was against the eventual world champion New York Mets.
There we go.
How crazy is that?
We have Luis Rojas going into his second year as Mets manager. What are your impressions so far of the job Luis is doing? And he kind of came into his managerial tenure as a Met in a kind of roundabout way, replacing Carlos Beltran last year. So what are your impressions on him, and what kind of success do you think, or what kind of things does he need to have success in New York?
Well, I got very little impression last year of anything that I saw. I don't call that a season, and I think what you have to do is start fresh right now. I think he got the 60 games of practice kind of last year, where it really didn't mean as much as it usually means. And this year they'll be playing for keeps, and we'll see what happens. I think the key thing he needs is good health, especially with some of those star players. But they have a lot of very, very good players. So I think even with a couple of guys going down, they have enough of depth to withstand the pressures of the National League East. So I think he's in a great shape and a great place to be.
You bring up the depth of this current Mets team. What are your overall impressions of the team that the Mets currently have in St. Lucie?
Well, I haven't seen him this year, and I wish I could tell you guys I've really been avidly following, but I haven't. But I picked up pieces, and I know their core, and I think that I think the bullpen's spectacular. I think the starting staff is as good as anyone this side of Atlanta, I guess, if Soroka comes back, but. Their offense is good. There's, people nitpick them about, what's going on in center field and, what happens if Cano comes back and all that stuff. But the team as it is right now is a pretty solid team.
I know you said you really haven't been following as avidly as, as you'd like, but, the Mets did make a big acquisition this offseason in getting Francisco Lindor, who is coming over from a rather smaller market. Having been a manager and having dealt with guys that have come from smaller to bigger markets, what are your thoughts on that, kind of having to adapt to playing in New York under where everything is really magnified?
Well, it's different. There's more of everything, and you have to have more energy for sure. And it seems like Lindor has more energy, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. The crazy thing that I think about, and it's not to jinx the situation for sure, but I just get a weird feeling with a switch hitting middle infielder who's a superstar coming over from Cleveland, because I
Yep.
had two of them, and I couldn't believe um, how good they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
They were absolutely spectacular players,
Mm-hmm.
and they each, I think, got 100 hits from each side of the plate.
Mm-hmm.
In Cleveland, that was Carlos Baerga and Roberto Alomar. The year before they came to the Mets, 100 hits from each side of the plate, and were absolute stars. And in the flight from Cleveland to New York, they dropped off something, and they just never were the same players in New York or ever again, for that matter. And I don't know what it is in the water in Cleveland, but hopefully we get a direct pipeline from Cleveland to the city for Francisco. And I really like, I love this comment when he mentioned about people calling him Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you like that, or did you like that?
Yeah, I like that. He's someone who already just seems like very attentive and engaged about being in New York. I was very impressed by when he first addressed the media. It was something that you don't always see with guys, and just the fact that I think he was addressing, you know, reporters and everyone by their names, and just really, I thought that really showed that he was a consummate professional, and so it was kind of exciting to see. But just because I came into the baseball world around 2002 when the Mets did trade for Robbie Alomar, and I don't think that I fully recognized the magnitude of how drastic his drop off was. You touched about it a little bit, but what was that like? I mean, you're thinking you're getting a guy who you're gonna plug into your lineup who had a 6 wins above replacement season the year prior, and then he comes to the Mets and just fell off a cliff. How do you deal with things like that?
You hope like you don't have to deal with it. It was painful. I played with Roberto's dad. Sandy Alomar was my DP combo when I played shortstop for the California Angels in the early 70s. I knew the family forever. I watched him and was a fan of his from afar. And just to see him struggle the way he struggled, he didn't hit well in batting practice. It was absolutely mind-boggling how precipitous the drop was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna give you a date and a preface, and I'll kind of let you go from there. You don't have to think too hard about this one. June 9th, 1999.
Oh, I don't know what happened that day.
No, just go. Next question. Go from there. All right.
It was it was a Sunday night game at Yankee Stadium. How about that? Yeah. And
so you get ejected in extras.
Oh, the night was 3 days later. That's right. I thought you were going to ask about the 6th. I think when the coaches got fired on the night.
That was a busy week. I can see how you might get
Sunday night game. We played that Sunday night game, and the coaches got fired. 3 of my coaches got fired, and then we played Monday and Tuesday after I made a proclamation after the coaches got fired. Do you know what that proclamation was?
No.
Tell me.
Huh?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
So
what was it?
So we had played 55 games into the season, and we were 1 game under 500. We had a 7-game. We were 6 games over 500. We lost 7 in a row going into Yankee Stadium. We lost our 6th and 7th game in a row on Friday and Saturday. And on Saturday night, the general manager, Steve Phillips, fired 3 of my coaches. So it was the worst day of my life. And during the press conference, with these guys getting fired, who are all my good friends, as well as my hand-selected coaches. You know, a guy asked me why I didn't go with him, and I told him that I promised him that I'd turn the season around and get him a playoff check. And the guy said, well, you played 55 games so far. You're one game under 500. What are you going to do in the next 55 games? And I said, well, we'll go 40 and 15.
Mm.
And you know what the crazy thing is, guys? Right now it's 2021. And when some old guy says that to you guys, you could Google it just to see if it's the truth. And you know
I
what?
believe you.
It's the truth.
I believe you.
A couple days later, we had a winning streak going of 2 games, and then we went into extra innings, and then I called a pitch out, and then Mike got called for a catcher's balk, and then Mike was ready to get thrown out of the game, and I came out and argued to keep him from getting thrown out of the game, and then they threw me out of the game. And then I went into the clubhouse, and I came back to the game, and I wore a mustache and glasses, and they saw me, and we won the game, and then the league fined me $10,000 and suspended me 3 games. And that's the thing that I'm known most for in my life, is wearing a mustache in the dugout with a pair of used sunglasses and somebody else's hat. Yeah.
So
and
did you just have...
This is my big mouth guy who
Oh,
usually
you have
goes
2 of
for a
them.
walk right about now with his older brother. This is
Oh.
PT. And
So cute.
right before 9 o'clock, they usually go for a walk, and they're saying, what the hell are you doing, Dad?
Yep.
This isn't the time to be zooming. This is the time to be walking.
They have internal clocks. My cat does the same thing every morning when he wants to be fed. So
You
I get
bet,
it.
Yeah.
So did you just have fake glasses and a mustache sitting around?
Well, they're real glasses and a fake mustaches. But
So did you?
yeah, it was somebody's sunglasses, and the mustache was just the sticky things you put on your eyes.
Eye black, yeah.
They put them this way, yeah. Nice mustache if you ever need one. Yeah, if you have dark hair, it works out. At the time, I happened to have dark hair, so it was a dark mustache. Imagine now I'd have to get a white mustache. It just wouldn't work the same. Yeah.
No, of course not. So, kind of going off that, you get asked all the time, I'm sure, about the mustache game, about Robin Ventura's Grand Slam single, about the huge comeback against Atlanta. But what I want to ask you is, what is your most enjoyable, underrated moment being Mets manager? Something that perhaps really sticks out to you, but other people might not know because it's not talked about as much.
I don't know. Maybe that grand pinch hit grand slam by Benny Agbayani in the Tokyo Dome. The second game of the season, because that saved his career. Because if he didn't get in that game, he was going to the minor leagues and probably wouldn't have started in AAA, and we never would have seen him again. And he hit the grand slam, and he stayed on our team, and he wound up being a terrific player, and like he should have been.
Absolutely.
So that one reminds me a lot. Yeah.
Gotta love Benny.
Yeah, Benny.
In the Tokyo Dome, obviously well-renowned in the Japanese baseball world for your managerial stint. One of the greats when it comes to Italian baseball. What has the international baseball scene kind of meant to you?
What has it? Say it again.
What has the international baseball scene meant to you?
Well, it's been a big part of my life. I got to go to play in the Caribbean World Series when I was 23 years old. I was the MVP of the series. I got traded to the Angels so that I became a starting shortstop for them because of playing there. I met my wife in the Dominican. She was on vacation. So the Dominican was really important to me. I got to be the first manager ever from outside of Japan to manage in their professional leagues, which is one of the greatest honors I ever had in my life, and won a Japan championship there. So that international thing for me has been very good. For MLB, not so much. I think MLB has totally dropped the ball over the years. Matter of fact, it had to be 20 years ago. Could it have been 20 years ago? Yeah, might have been as much as 20 years ago that Bud Selig said to me that as soon as they got rid of the steroid problem, the next thing they were going to do is figure out what to do internationally. And so they're still figuring it out.
What can you? So what exactly did Bud mean by that? Was he talking about like altering the way in which players come over here, or did he want to kind of like altogether not have that kind of relationship with international players?
No, actually, what I thought he was trying to do is have international expansion, which we should already have since baseball. The baseball infrastructure in Asia is major league, and there's probably a way of having a division of Major League Baseball played in Asia that makes all the sense in the world, except for its Asia.
Do you think that that's not having that kind of expansion internationally is the reason that you see players come over here and kind of fail to stick, even if they come with a lot of fanfare, such as guys like Daisuke Matsuzaka, who had some nice seasons, but certainly didn't live up to the overall hype, and even perhaps someone like Shohei Ohtani, who the book is kind of out on right now.
Well, yeah, you live in New York. You're forgetting Tanaka. He did pretty darn good. You're forgetting Matsui, Hideki Matsui. He did pretty good. And then there was a guy who came over who in his first year won an MVP and set an all-time hits record. And a guy named Michiro Suzuki, who should have been a Met and was not and it was not a Met. But, you know, making adjustments to different leagues are tough. When you try to make an adjustment and you have to also eat different food, it's tough. And then when you try to make an adjustment and you have to speak a different language, it's tough. And that's why most guys, or many guys, who go to Japan, people think that they're going to go there and be star players, go there and stink after hitting like 30 home runs in the big leagues the year before. So that it's not about the talent and the play. It's about the adjustment to culture and custom.
You bring up, as you're listing off the adjustments players have to make, you brought up a language barrier, and that, it really is a very real issue. And it still is today, even as recently as earlier in the spring when the Mariners team president, Kevin Mather, resigned over some controversial statements regarding top prospect Julio Rodriguez and his language barrier. How big of an adjustment and a jump is it for players who know that they have what it takes to succeed on the field, but might have their issues be more so adjusting off the field?
Well, it keeps people from being star players as much as the curveball does, or the inability to get inside with your fastball as a pitcher. When you have distractions, or when you're being divided in your concentration, it doesn't matter your physical skills, because you have to match up your mental capacity with your physical skills. And when you have problems off the field, you sure in heck don't succeed on the field. Very few do, anyway.
Kind of going back to your managerial career a little bit, Bobby. You managed for a long time. You're in the game for a long time, and what do you miss most about managing on a daily basis, and kind of even going beyond that? Do you maintain a close relationship with any of your former players?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of the players I have a relationship with. I don't know if you call it close. Whenever I see them, I'll buy them a drink or have dinner with them. That's for sure. I miss most is the players and the coaches. That camaraderie thing, and that growth thing. Each season is a 7-month process where you're looking for growth. You're looking for players to grow developmentally. You're looking for your team to grow as a group of people playing together. You're looking for the organization to grow and mature within the community. So it's really a fun process to be involved with, and that's probably what you miss the most. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on recent rule changes in baseball, including the 3-batter minimum, which effectively eliminates, the lefty specialist out of the bullpen, the potential for a universal DH with the next collective bargaining agreement, and the extra inning rule where you have runners starting on second base?
Yeah, well, I don't like the runner starting on second base, only because it screws up everything. It's all the stats. The guy shouldn't get credit for a run, and the pitcher shouldn't get discredit for an earned run, and the guy shouldn't get credit for an RBI necessarily because his team didn't have anything to do with getting that person in place. I don't mind the 3-batter minimum, only because I think the world got spinning a little too fast for some people. But you know what? Just like you do the 3-batter minimum, you guys should be the first to say that you heard it when Bobby Valentine said at your podcast that they should do a similar situation with the shift, because the shift isn't going away. It's here to stay. But what they should do is say you have 27 outs and you can use your shift to try to get, let's say, 18 of them or 15 of them. And then you'll see a lot of work that has to be done by the manager that can't be done before the game by a computer, because you have to use your shifts judiciously during the game. And I think that would be fun. I think it'd be good for the fans to be yelling at the manager not to put the shift on, save the shift, go to shift. You got to shift, the shift, the shift. You could do the whole thing. But why they haven't figured out that as an easy way of keeping the situation, but also limiting it. And as far as the DH is concerned, the year I broke my leg, I came back. The next year, I wasn't as good a player as I was. I could still hit a bit. And they started this thing called the designated hitter. And that was in 74. And it was a 3-year experiment. Okay, 1974. And they haven't figured it out yet. The experiment's still going on. So I think that in itself is crazy, that it was supposed to be decided in 3 years, and it hasn't been decided in over 4 decades. But, it seems that everyone who's talking about the game now, or most people who are talking about it, most people who are in the front office determining what should be done on the field, and most of the guys who are now coaches and managers never played a game of baseball with the pitcher hitting. Because unless they played in the National League of the MLB or the Central League of the Japan Professional League, that the DH was being used in college, in Little League, in high school, in the minor leagues. So if you don't know it, why would you want it? And I think that's why you see no one wants it. You guys have never played a game where the pitcher hit.
Yeah.
Think about it. Never in your
That's
life.
true.
You've seen it. You've seen it on TV, but you never played a game with
Of course.
it. So there's no true appreciation for it. That's for sure.
So, in baseball, there's been a lot more emphasis put on advanced metrics and analytics to try to get a deeper dive into players. And not to say that these things didn't exist beforehand, but I think it's just come more to the surface in recent years. What are your thoughts on kind of the analytic revolution in baseball? And, you're not managing at the moment, but how would it be something that you would approach being a manager, kind of combining the analytics with what you're seeing with your eyes?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And if that was the only other way of gathering information, that is seeing what the computer says and figure out what your eyes tell you, um, then it would be a real battle as to which would win. But you also gather information with your ears. Your
Mm-hmm.
trainers talking to you, your players are talking to you. Hell's bells, I managed one of the most important games of my career, and the reason I started the pitcher that I started was because as I got to the clubhouse and was ready to enter the clubhouse, this guy's wife said, please let Bobby start this game. He's going to pitch the game of his life. And he pitched the game of his life. And it was a one-hitter against the Giants in the final game of the playoff series. So, that's pretty good. That was pretty good information that I got with my ears. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And, you also have a memory that helps you with the metrics. The memory of the guy who had the bone bruise on his hand the time before he played the team that you're playing. And, against those right-handed hard throwers, he was 1 for 16. But he was 1 for 16 because he had a bone bruise in his hand and couldn't swing the bat. And now his bone bruise is all better. So my memory tells me I know that 1 for 16. But what am I going to do? Use it to sit him on the bench? Or am I going to combine it with the other means of collecting information? Him, my eyes, the training room, he feels great, et cetera, et cetera. So you're always combining and using all the information you can. That there's more information today, I think it's spectacular, especially to tell you what happened. Okay? It's not as spectacular to tell you what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
So, with new owner Steve Cohen coming into the fold, he's been a big advocate for the black jerseys.
Good for him.
The era that you're associated with for Mets fans is defined by a World Series run and the black jerseys. What are your opinions on the black jerseys and whether or not the Mets should bring them back?
I'm a big fan of them. I don't think that the Mets ever look better than in those black jerseys, except for maybe in the stripes. But everyone hates wearing the pinstripes.
Really?
It's a total. It's a 2-ply fabric to get the stripe, and they don't give like the other uniforms do. They're not as supple, not as comfortable. Okay, I like the look, but I don't like the feel, and neither did the players. So, I mean, when you get down to the blue and orange or the white, the white and blue, I think the black totally overcomes them. But I'm prejudiced.
We all are. So Bobby, you managed some really good Mets teams in the late 90s, early 2000s. And especially, you talked a little bit about Bobby Jones. You had a staff with Al Leiter on it. Mike Hampton before he ditched New York for the Colorado school system. But the Mets have a guy right now, Jacob deGrom, who, debatably the best pitcher in baseball right now. What are your thoughts on having Jacob deGrom anchoring this staff probably for the foreseeable future?
Couldn't have anyone better. Couldn't have a better competitor. Couldn't have better stuff. Couldn't have a better guy. Hey, he pitched his first game. Maybe you guys could Google it when you said that. I was thinking about it this afternoon. I'm pretty sure I was doing the pre and post game for his first game, and it was in against the Yankees.
It was.
right? Like 6 innings and 2 hits.
Yeah, he pitched really well.
Yeah. The funny thing about that is that we heard Sandy talking about him before the game, and he was calling him Jake.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went on the air, we didn't have any intel on him, and they were talking about him as being a swingman and maybe getting a start or two and pitching out of the bullpen. And I said in the post game show that that I thought he was the best looking pitcher that I saw this side of Tom Seaver and Matt Harvey, and I thought that the two of them were just that good when Harvey was good, and that we shouldn't ever call him Jake because he doesn't like to be called Jake. Because
Jacob.
I think Jay Horowitz texted me and said, "Don't call him Jake" for the post game show. So
what's funny, Bobby, is that
he's spectacular.
I was actually at the game the night before when Rafael Montero got his major league debut, and he was kind of the one that came with a little bit more fanfare.
Yes.
And I remember seeing you outside because you guys were doing your post game analysis outside of Citi Field. So I remember actually seeing you the night before when Montero pitched.
No kidding. Yeah, we might have been out in that parking lot area, huh?
Yep. Absolutely, you and Gary Apple and maybe Kevin Burkhardt. I'm not really sure, but I do remember that.
Maybe Bobby Ojeda.
Yes, Bob Ojeda. Absolutely.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
yeah, that's when he was.
That's right. We were outside the stadium. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good memory. Yeah, we were set up over to the left there of the Hodges entrance. Yeah.
Yep. And everyone was chanting. Everyone was chanting Bobby V. Bobby V.
Thanks. Good memories. Those are all good memories. Yeah. So anyway, he's the best. I love everything about him. You know what I really love? I love that he fields and he hits his. He can. And I said it that night too. Because you know what he did? He got a bump base hit that night.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned a couple double plays on comebackers.
Mm-hmm.
And he really looks. Well, he is. He's very, very good.
If I remember correctly, that was the first hit for Mets pitchers that year, I believe.
Yeah,
I think that was the year they started. I believe that's the year the Mets pitchers started like 0 for 60 something.
Yeah,
wow.
They're pretty bad.
Wow, that's an offer. Yeah.
So I'll ask one final question. We'll wrap it up from there. There's a lot of high hopes coming into the year for the Mets. New ownership, couple new star players in town, a really, really deep rotation with the additions of Carrasco, Taijuan Walker, a lot of depth with the team now, and a young core that's been in place for a couple of years now, finally hitting its peak. How do you manage, a team with such high expectations with little track record together?
Well, luckily you have some real good key players who are going to always keep you from going into long slumps, which will keep you on course with expectation. That's the physical thing. But the mental thing is you really have to get them engaged in the game, that they have to come to the park really being excited about playing that game. And as a manager, you have to make those games, because 162 of them, they start to become Groundhog Day after a while for some of these guys. We got another game today and another game tomorrow. No, you have this game today, not another game. This is the game, and you have to really work hard to keep the focus away from the past and away from the future and in the present. It's hard. It's not easy.
So Bobby, we'll let you go, but last but not least, favorite ballpark food. What's your go-to?
Well, mine was the brats with the special sauce in the old Milwaukee County Stadium, and the special sauce was to die for. In between batting practice, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, and of course. Yeah, two if not three. Yeah, just had to go for them. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out.